Today's show is sponsored by Find Houston Senior Care, your one-stop shop for everything senior care and senior living in the greater Houston area. Visit findhoustonseniorcare.com today. And now, here's your host, Catherine Watson. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Life After 50 show, where we try to bring you interesting guests that can help you on the second journey of your life. So here we are today. We're with Ravi Bala. Welcome to the show, Ravi.
Glad to be here, Catherine. Thank you.
Yes, glad to have you and really excited about this show. Ravi and I had a long conversation the other day. He is a wealth of knowledge around technology and specifically for helping you to age in place. So I'm going to turn it over to Ravi right now and let him just tell you a little bit about his background and how he got into this and what he's doing today.
Thank you, Catherine. I got into senior living and senior living technologies about a decade ago. I had sold off a business and I was looking for something worthwhile to do with my life. And at that time, some of these new things like mobile technology was starting to evolve. And I got together with a friend of mine and said, we really should find a way to take all of these point solutions that are emerging, put them together into a cohesive solution so that it can address a problem for senior living. And we looked at senior living as a market because we thought it was ripe for a change in terms of how they can take advantage of these technologies. But it was an incredible surprise walking into the senior living industry at that time. We walked in, people loved the vision, but there was no way to implement the vision because they didn't have the Wi-Fi infrastructure. They didn't have the cellular signals, and facilities were really bad because some of these are older 40, 50-year-old buildings. And we said, if you can't get signals from here to there, there is no way you can implement some of these technologies that we're really talking about. So we ended up turning around, and Bruce Weintraub, who was the CEO of HealthSignals, the company that we ended up forming, he was the former chief architect for Verizon Fios. So we said, look, the industry needs what we call digital plumbing. You've got expertise in it. So let's pivot the business and let's provide the industry what it needs. And so we became digital plumbers for the last decade.
Interesting.
And that was the name HealthSignals was all about getting intelligent signals from the seniors living quarters into the decision point, so that intelligent decisions can come back and changes can be made to how living happens. Mm-hmm. But since we got into we did this whole plumbing thing for a decade, and then about a year and a half ago, I did a leadership summit for Leading Age. Mm-hmm. And this session that I moderated was called "Will Elder Care Be Amazoned or Ubered?" Because I really wanted to kind of shake up some of the thinking amongst the senior living executives that were present in the audience, because I thought, look, a lot of this technology's evolved in the last 10 years, and we now everybody's got a phone. Everybody now within the last year, we all know how to do video conferencing, and I think. With the acceptance of technology across society, we wanted to see how that changes the business model and the service delivery of senior living capabilities.
Yes.
Right? And that's what got me to this whole notion of let's look at where the future of senior living is. And technology plays a huge role in this future of senior living. And when I looked at the market overall, I said, look, even today, 90% of seniors, maybe 85% of seniors age at home.
Right.
Maybe about 15% of the seniors live in senior living communities and facilities, which is the market we were dealing with at that point. So I basically said, I'm gonna step away from my role at HealthSignals. I'm gonna start looking at this new market space and see what I can do. Mm-hmm. So what I've been doing over the last year has been working with a lot of startups mentoring them and being consultants to them in their product strategies, in their go-to-market strategies for senior living technologies, and particularly as it relates to aging at home.
Right, right. And it's amazing the changes that have been made. My mother passed away in 2011, and if there had been some of the technologies that we have now back then, oh my gosh, it would have made her life so much richer, so much better. Just simple things like being able to pick up the phone and do a video call with your kid. I mean, that helps with senior isolation and disconnect and all of that. Just so many different things. Being able to order groceries and have them delivered. That would have made a huge difference, not only in her life as she got to the point where she couldn't drive anymore, but in my sister's life, who was picking up the groceries and bringing them to her. So I love technology, and I love the idea that as I age, and I'm in my mid 60s, and as my friends age, we're going to be able to do so much more from the comfort of our home. And that's where I think most people want to be. We want to be in the comfort of our own home. So let's talk about some of the most promising technologies out there that you see that are emerging. I mean, we all know about the, Alexis and Nest, and, we know about, doing FaceTime, and we know about all of these things, but what's out there that's new? What do you see in the future?
I'll talk about what we'll see in the future, but I also want to give you this one story about the Alexa Echo Show. About 2 years ago, when the Echo Show, the video version of the Alexa came out, my parents live in a retirement community in India, so I took one and left it in India with them, and we have one here. So every morning we do a 5-minute check. Just how are you doing? And it's great because they can sit on their sofa and talk, and I can be far away and talk, and it makes a big difference. Now, with the same technology, my in-laws live about an hour and a half away, and they're in their late 80s, getting close to 90, and they have that technology. My wife's a cardiologist, and one of the phone calls, she was talking with her dad, and he was feeling a little low energy, and she said, "Let's get on Alexa and take a look at you." And when you get face to face with them, the conversation opens up a little bit more. You get a lot more information being exchanged. And he was saying, "Well, I'm a little tired and my leg's a little swollen." And she said, "Well, wait a minute, put up your leg. Let me take a look at this on the Echo Show." And he put up the leg, pressed the thumb impression stayed. And she said, "Dad, I want you to go over, call 911, go to the emergency room, and I'll meet you there." And they had admitted him for congestive heart failure that night.
Wow.
Simple communication, and this kind of a technology. Now, there is no reason why you couldn't have a AI tool that'll kind of guide you through these very simple steps. They may not be accurate. At the very least, this artificial intelligence will tell you, if you do this and the impression stays, guess what? Call your doctor.
Right.
Right. So we're seeing the emergence of a lot of really interesting sensor technologies out there, backed up by artificial intelligence, that are providing a ton of amazing intelligence. I'll give you this. There are lots of these wearables and things like that, and I play around with a lot of them, and I evaluate a lot of them, and they're great. Okay? But some of the newer technologies that are evolving are really interesting. They use technologies like Wi-Fi Doppler, which basically says, when you have Wi-Fi and you are sitting there or moving through that field, you're actually changing the Wi-Fi field. So if I have a right kind of a sensor, I can tell Ravi from Catherine moving in the room.
Oh, okay.
And not only that, I can read your heartbeat. I can read your respiratory, rate, so I can tell you whether you're sleeping or awake. Right. So there is a company I mentor with a accelerator called Silver Moonshots. It's a virtual accelerator, and we're focused on age tech related companies.
Right.
And one of the companies that we mentored about 1 or 2 cohorts ago is a company called Dele Health, and they take this commercially available radar detection capability called the Bala bot.
Mm-hmm.
And they've applied artificial intelligence on top of that. So they can determine if you're active, they can determine if you've fallen, and they can provide the right kind of alerts. So because this radar can tell if you're standing vertical or if you're horizontal. It can
Wow.
tell if you lower to lie down or if you
Mm-hmm.
fell. It makes
Right.
a difference, right? So you can avoid the false alarms and things like that.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not invasive because it's not like they're taking a picture of you, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not as invasive. But that is amazing. That is amazing. I can see, that being just a big uh, catalyst that keeps people in their own homes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that this whole notion of biomarkers are really starting to evolve, which is really interesting. There are vocal biomarkers because your voice sounds different based on what your conditions are, right?
Right,
I mean, you can tell when somebody smoked for a long time, their voice is different than somebody who's never smoked.
right,
And so when somebody has a cough, or a chest congestion, their voice is a little bit different.
right.
There are organizations, like Vocalis out of Israel, that essentially do things like, based on your voice, they can determine whether you potentially have COVID-19 or not.
Wow.
Whether you and eventually they'll be able to determine your cardiac conditions based on those kinds of biomarkers. Right?
Interesting.
You can certainly tell what your mood is, what your level of potential for depression is by
Right. Oh,
monitoring
absolutely.
this. Right now, it's kind of interesting. I'm wearing this thing called the Amazon Halo.
Right.
I'm doing an early, I'm one of the early guys to get it, and the Halo is just basically a sensor that will look at your heart rate and heart rate variability and all of that. It gives you things like, it monitors your sleep, tells you how deep your sleep is, how much of your time was REM sleep versus deep sleep, etc. And it's important to monitor sleep because it has implications for potential for Alzheimer's and things like that, right? But it also has a very interesting tone monitoring capability. And once you enable the tone monitoring capability, it'll say things like, "Well, you sounded a little angry at this time. You sounded a little disappointed." So it has those vocal
Interesting.
biomarkers that can essentially monitor, and then it'll give you some kind of an indication of your stress level.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Interesting. And so how would that work? Because everybody's different. I mean, I tend to, sometimes people think that I'm maybe angry when I'm not at all. I'm just deep in thought.
Yeah.
So is it going to pick up on me as if I'm angry when I'm really just deep in thought?
Well, I'm sure in the early phases you'll have those kinds of mistakes that happen. With any of these technologies, you'll learn, and the iterations will
Does
get
it
better.
learn
But
me? That's what I guess that's what I'm
I'm
trying to ask. Is it
yeah,
going to have the intelligence to learn me and what I'm really about?
most of these technologies are designed in a way to say, here's your baseline. Your baseline is different than my baseline.
Right.
And I'm not really interested in the baseline per se as much as I'm interested in the difference from the baseline. So for example, if I have an activity sensor in my wall that just determines movement,
Mm-hmm.
and it normally detects that I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and Catherine wakes up at 10 o'clock in the morning. If I wake up at 9, it sounds an alarm of some sort to somebody saying, "Hey, what's going on?" If
Mm-hmm.
you wake up, at 10:30, it's not going to sound the alarm for you because it says here's the delta from the baseline that is different. So just check in to see what's going on, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the changes that we're really trying to monitor uh,
Right.
at this point. And I think that's where intelligence comes in, right? And the reason why I would employ any kind of a AI capability is so that I can learn from your patterns, the environment, and then see
Mm-hmm.
what the difference is, and then learn to do better the next time around.
Right. Right.
There are some other really interesting technologies now that use this capability called transdermal optical imaging. Your skin when you do something, whether it's emotions, whether it's a health, or when you breathe, has micro changes that happen to your skin. So if I were to, in this conversation, if I were to just record this conversation, I might be able to tell you what your heartbeat is. I will be able to tell you what your heartbeat is. I'll be able to tell you probably what your oxygen level is. And I can do this with just my iPhone. I have the application on the phone. There's a company called Bina.ai out of Israel, and there's a company that out of Toronto called Neurologics with a product called Anura.ai. And I love Anura's implementation of what they've done. They actually do even blood pressure detection using just this transdermal optical imaging capability.
Now, Ravi, let me ask you something. How is this information used? Is it given to the consumer? Is it for the doctor? How is it going to be used, and what is the best use of it?
A lot of these companies essentially come up that their business model is they provide what's called a software development kit, an SDK, which says you can embed that into your own application. So if MD Anderson has an app, they can embed this capability into it.
Okay.
And what's really neat is these things perform the task on the phone itself. My picture, my image does not have to go across to the server somewhere for the determination to happen.
Right.
So I've actually tested it where I turned off and put it in airplane mode and tested it. And it worked. I also wanted to know if it worked for my skin pigmentation, which is different than your skin pigmentation.
Right.
And it worked fine. We have a couple of SpO2 devices in the house, and so I had 2 SpO2 devices on either of my fingers and had this thing give me my oxygen level, my heart rate level, etc. And they're almost identical. I mean, typically when I have 2 SpO2 devices, they don't give me the same number. If I have it on either hand, they give me like 1 point off, and this thing is within that range.
Interesting. So, Ravi, what do you see as the biggest issue with elder care today? Is there one?
Yes. I'll address it in 2 phases. One is in the institutions. A lot of them want to sell this whole resort model. This is cruise ship on land. We do everything for you. We've got a 5-star chef. We do. It's just incredible. And on the other side of it, we have seniors that are going to retire that will have no resources. They just can't afford even to live in their own homes. Right? Forget about affording any of these facilities. There was a facility that opened up near our house, and we wanted to check it out for my in-laws. So we actually went through the round of about a half a dozen facilities in the area. The new one that just opened up basically said, well, it's $12,000 a month, for the couple. And oh, by the way, if they're in a wheelchair, it'll probably get to be $14,000. It's like something of that nature. And then the less expensive one that we saw was about $6,000. And this is a larger chain. And even there, it's a challenge because my in-laws are vegetarian, and they've pretty much eaten Indian food all their life, and there's just no way to have that kind of cater to their capabilities. I mean, that's the affordability issue, and then this whole resort issue I think is an issue because in the industry we often debate this thing of terminology. Well, seniors don't like to be called seniors, so let's just call them older adults. Well, they don't like to be called older adults, so let them call them elders. I really don't care what you call me.
Yeah, right.
What I want is engaged, active living with purpose. And that purpose part of it is incredibly important. And I think we're not catering to that in the industry overall. So we've got to find a way to use technology. I mean, the technology allows a lot of things to happen and create the possibility of a purpose.
So let's talk about that. I love that. Let's talk about that in the frame of I want to live in my own home. How do I live at home and still be able to connect with my community and have a purpose and all of that? And how does technology fit into that?
There's an organization called encore.org,
Mm-hmm.
and you probably know them. And they're an organization that really focuses on um, the second half of life and giving people purpose in their lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are probably a half a dozen organizations that have evolved, along those lines, to essentially make it easy for elders, older adult seniors to have a purpose in life. I can connect you using some kind of a capability to learning opportunities with universities. I can connect you with mentoring opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a organization that I'm on the advisory board of. It's called cyberseniors.org. And
Mm-hmm.
what Cyber Seniors does is it pairs a high school senior, and now we actually even work with college kids. We pair them with seniors. And
Wonderful.
you have a technology transfer one way and hopefully wisdom transfer in the other way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that starts to enable purpose. There is a person by the name of Sugata Mitra, and he was really working on new models of education for kids. And it created this whole concept of self-organized learning environments. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the things he created was this thing called the Granny Cloud in the UK. And the
Mm-hmm.
Granny Cloud basically was grandmas in the UK teaching English to kids in the developing world. And he created this linkage capability. So there is so much value that a senior has that we need to start mining.
We need
And
to tap into it.
yes,
Absolutely. We need to
yes,
tap into it and
yeah.
use it.
And I think I happen to believe the most critical job in elder care, in senior living, is the job of the resident activities director, not the
Mm-hmm.
chef, not the some other person, but
Yep.
let's get that person's job elevated. And we also distribute that resident activities function into every part of the organization. And this is not about bingo. This is not about Zumba lessons. No,
Yeah.
this is about saying, what is it about your life that we can essentially, mine and
Mm-hmm.
share with the larger community? How do we acknowledge the fact that you've lived an incredibly rich life, and that we really need you? We want you to pass
Mm-hmm.
that wisdom along. We want you to pass that capability along, because there is wisdom that needs to get passed along.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's it's fascinating, and I love the idea that because of technology, seniors are going to be able to stay in their home and still stay very connected in their communities. That's been one of the big cries of the big facilities is, oh, if they're home, they're going to be lonely. They're going to be just depressed because they don't have any community and they don't have any connection. And I think we're seeing that change because, I mean, just simple things like being on social media. I can connect with my old friends. I can connect with family. I can join a cooking group on Facebook or LinkedIn or somewhere, and I can do things that I love to do, and I can share what I have to share. So
Yes.
it's just changed so much. How do you see this past year of the pandemic has changed a lot of things? How do you see that fitting into what possibilities there are?
Well, the pandemic's done one thing, and it has shown us increasingly the fragility of our systems. Like the healthcare system is incredibly fragile, right? It's not resilient at all, and it's because it's built on these centralized nodes. The hospitals where you go to get treated. And even before the crisis, we were already starting to see moves that said, look, technology is going to allow for me to create a hospital at home model. I heard the head of the Massachusetts Association of Hospitals give a talk once, and he said, look, somewhere 25% of our hospitals are underwater at this point. And and we're also starting to see that we can't really accommodate all of the treatment possibilities in our hospitals. It's just too expensive to do it this way. We've got to find a way to push it out, and we're looking at it as far as pushing it into the homes, whether it's a hospital at home or even and so how they drop off these pods outside your home. You can essentially for 2 weeks drop off a hospital pod outside your home and start to create treatments. And we are going to increasingly see the triage function move into the homes, right? And I'll actually show you this device is called TytoCare, and TytoCare is it's got a camera on the back, it's got an infrared sensor on the back, and I can attach a stethoscope to the back of this thing, and I can give heartbeat, and I can transmit that information to a physician, right? It's got a otoscope, so I can put it in my ear, and take a picture, so I can send you pictures for you to judge whether I have an ear infection or not, or my kid has an ear infection or not. This whole triaging function is going to start to move into the homes a lot more. So we're already starting to see the emergence of a lot of home testing companies.
Absolutely. And just telemedicine in general. I mean, people were resistant to it, very resistant to it. It's been trying to emerge for years now, and people have just been, oh no, I have to go see the doctor, especially older folks. And now with the pandemic, it's like, oh, I don't want to go in the office. Let's just do it online. And they're starting to see the benefits of that. Number one, you don't have to drive over there, sit in the waiting room for an hour or two, all of that, sit around a bunch of other sick people. You can do it from the comfort of your home, and people are starting to see the benefits of that. I think some of our medical personnel need a little more training in how to best present themselves online. But, that will come with time. That will come with time. We were all kind of thrown into this last March, and it happened really quickly. And I know I had to have a couple of medicine visits, so to speak, and it was different. And one of them was very good, and one of them was not the best, And it was the health professional just was not comfortable with using the technology. So there's going to be a whole training around that, and because you're coming into somebody's home as opposed to them coming to you, and that's a whole different mindset, I think, for the physician.
It's the back to the future, right? I mean, we used to have home visits as the norm.
Absolutely.
And we went away from it. Now I think technology makes it possible for us to do it again. Now, I mean, I have personal experience with it because I told you my wife's a cardiologist, and so during this whole crisis, she had to quickly jump into telemedicine, and what they did primarily, I think most of the people that have done stuff is not telemedicine or telehealth. They've done televisits. They use the video conference, and they essentially have talk to you, and then they'll do some level of diagnostics. But that really isn't telemedicine. Telemedicine will happen when you take a look, when you take something like a TytoCare, and you have it mailed to people, and or everybody has it in their home, and the doctor says, you know what, let me just go ahead and listen to your heart, and you're able to listen to the heart across the net and across the world.
Well, let me tell you, Ravi, that some of this technology has been around for a long, long time. My dad passed away in 2005. He was a heart patient, and I was much younger at the time and lived away. And so I didn't know all the details, but I do know that he had some kind of machine that every month or every few weeks or something, he had to place, I think it was for his pacemaker, maybe.
Yeah.
And the doctor could monitor it. And I remember us all being so amazed that he could sit in his home and hook this up and call the doctor, and the doctor could get the results of what was going on. And that was probably 2000, early 2000, that was happening.
Yeah,
so
I mean, look, once the communication link is there, then everything else is possible. right? Once you have power in your home, you can plug in your stereo device, you can plug in your heart monitors, or you can plug in your vacuum cleaner. I mean, like, everything is possible once that infrastructure is there.
Right, right. So is it going to be hard to get the infrastructure into people's homes? Okay, that's the next step.
Yeah, I think in some homes it is difficult, but what we're really starting to see now, um, for 90% of the things that you need to do, you don't need high bandwidth. You don't need to have for me to send you my heart readings, it's just a small amount of communication capability, and any cell phone connection will do that for you.
Okay.
For to do video conferencing, even of this resolution, we'd be able to do that pretty much with a cell phone connection. And you guys do it today when you do FaceTime and all of that, right?
Right.
I may not be able to do HD to HD transmission to do much more deeper look at your skin color and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can create a infrastructure and tool sets that say, I can do the diagnostics locally and I can just send you the results.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do HD capture locally, and I'll go ahead and diagnose whether your heartbeat is high or low, and I can send you the heartbeat numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there are ways you can design a full-blown solution end to end that can accommodate for low bandwidth communication capability. I'm also waiting for Elon Musk's Starlink to get out there. Right now he's talking about $99 a month, but eventually that'll come down to like $9 a month, and everybody will have enough of a high bandwidth communication, so it's not even going to be an issue anymore.
Right, right.
Maybe, and then maybe within a decade. Yeah, and think about it. You're talking about your dad and the experiences in 2005 and 2011. Within that time frame, we're going to see communication hopefully not be an issue. It's more important to get the human software and the human thinking upgraded to make sure that we can accommodate that kind of a capability.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you something outside the box a little bit, because I've had this discussion with different friends and family members. Do you see holograms in our future? And how would that work?
I'm hoping we'll see holograms in the future, but I'm not quite so sure how rapidly we're gonna see that happen. Because for me to do a hologram, I need to have more than one projector.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. It's not impossible to have,
Right.
but right now, all of the examples that I've seen of holograms are more theatrical. For me to have a clinical representation of some sort, I mean, I can probably see more the virtual reality goggles creating communities.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there's a company called Rendever out of Boston. And what Rendever does is it does coordinated trips of the Vatican, for example. I'll have like four people together, right? And
I've
we're
heard
doing
of
virtual
that.
reality shows, and everybody is like, together doing this.
Right.
And I'll tell you one of the most incredible examples that I saw of the use of virtual reality. There was somebody with early stage dementia, and they had her put on these goggles. And when she put the goggles on, her hands flew to her mouth, tears started streaming down her eyes, but because what she was seeing was a custom VR made of a home that her husband had built for her. And she said, Joe built this, and she's looking around. She goes, how am I here? And it was just a phenomenal thing to watch.
I'm getting chills as you say this. It's like, it's like the light bulb goes off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the communication starts to open up. I mean, there is just so much that you can do. So I can see a much more robust implementation of virtual reality much earlier than I can see the availability and the use of holograms.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I just wanted to throw that out there because we've had that discussion in my family and with friends, and I wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah, so, I mean, you do see using the HoloLens and things like that, where you have a representation using a specialized goggles to see that. It's a possibility. I mean, but it's still early stages.
One last question I have for you, because I know I'm going to hear some flack back from some of my friends in the senior living and senior care industry that will say technology cannot replace people. What would you say to that?
100% agree. I think any technology that is designed or sold as this can replace the person, um, I think it'll have a lot of resistance and it's bound to fail. But I will tell you though, technology can make a person work at their highest level of capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you one example. Whether it's in a hospital, assisted living facility, skilled nursing facility, somebody pushes a button, right? Everybody rushes to that room because somebody pushed a button.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fluff my pillow as a request, or room's a little hot. Can you lower the thermostat, or turn on the TV for me, please? I don't know where the remote is, or I need to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I don't know what that request is, I can't prioritize it. So now I've got an overworked staff that's running around. If technology doesn't tell me which person is supposed to go to that room, I've got 2 people running in there. Now I've got twice the labor force committed to this thing. And worse yet, if the person needs to be turned over, for example, you've got somebody that may be 300 pounds, and this person that's 90 pounds. There is no way this orderly is going to be able to make that happen. But if I can get technology to say, I've got a tablet and I can tell you what I want done right by, I can click on fluff my pillow, I can click on turn me over, I can click on I need to go to the bathroom. Any one of those options. It's a really simple, technology to deploy. And I have an AI program on the back end that receives this request and says, I need to send, this person has requested to be turned over, or they need to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to send this 90-pound orderly because this person's 350 pounds. I'm going to send this person over here. So I can route the right people to the right places. So they're working much more efficiently, because you don't have to have this person come back and go get this other individual. Now you wasted a lot of resources and you're frustrated doing that.
Right.
Technology can stop you from doing really scut work. For example, all physicians I know, my wife included, hate the EMR. Because you hate it because as a patient, my doctor is not looking at me, and the doctor hates it because they're not looking at you, but they're required to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got technology companies like Nuance has got a capability, Sekara and Suki and these organizations have created these things where using AI, it automatically keeps listening to the conversation and it fills the EMR for you as you're having conversation with that patient.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Let's use technology to enhance that human experience. And that's, again, we're talking about, in all of the discussions of technology, the most important things are, let's use it to enhance the human connection. Let's use it to enhance purpose, right, and engagement. Right. These are all the human elements we need to amplify using technology.
Mm-hmm. And that's the key, I think, is that it's going to be a concentrated effort between technology and human interaction. You're going to have both, and it works beautifully together. It's not one or the other.
Yeah. When DeepMind essentially beat the folks in chess and Go and all of these things, one of the things that the head of DeepMind said was, look, AI can probably beat the individual, but if I have a human and an AI, they're going to beat anybody that doesn't use just an AI alone or just a human alone.
Exactly.
Right?
Ravi, this has been a riveting conversation. I've really enjoyed every moment of it. Unfortunately, we're way past the time, so I'm going to have to shut it off. We'll bring you back another time, I know, because you've got just a wealth of information.
Well,
and
thank you.
I think we need that. So where should I send somebody if they wanted to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so they can look up Ravi Bala on LinkedIn, and feel free to connect with me.
Okay.
I think that'll be the easiest. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. I think it's worthwhile, talking about it. And that's some of the resources that are out there for people to look at aging technologies. Karen Etkin runs a really neat site called thegerontologist.com. Great source of information. And then, of course, the Dean of Aging in Place is Lori Orlov, and you probably know her. And she runs a website called ageinplacetech.com. So those two sites are just absolutely phenomenal resources, and I get a lot of my information from them, and they alert me to new technologies that are evolving, so I can then go talk to the CEOs and find out more details.
Great, great. Well, again, thank you so much for being here today. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time and your expertise and your information. And I am just excited, looking forward to the changes that we're going to see. I mean, like I said, I'm looking back at when my mom, was living and when my dad was living, and my sister and I talk all the time about, gosh, if only we would have had these technologies when they were alive, it would have made their lives so much richer and so much easier. So I'm looking forward to the changes in the future, because the what you've been talking about is amazing, and it's going to make such a difference,
So am I, and thank you for having me.
All righty. Thanks for joining us on the Life After 50 show, where we help you navigate the second half of your life. Join us every Wednesday live on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And don't forget to visit findhoustonseniorcare.com and the senior-conference.com.